On today's episode of the Blending Bourbon podcast, be sure to join Dixon and David from 2XO Whiskey and myself, David Mark Young from Golden Sheaf, as we discuss some of the challenges during October, November, December, rolling out a bourbon brand, some of the distribution, allocation challenges, everything that you're familiar with when it comes to hard to find products all times of year, but especially this time of year. This is our holiday episode. Happy holidays to you. Cheers.
Blending Bourbon is the podcast that takes you beyond the barrel and behind the scenes of the whiskey industry with master blenders Dixon Dedman and David Mark Young.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this holiday edition of the Blending Bourbon podcast, sponsored by Golden Sheaf. I'm Dixon Dedman of 2XO Whiskey, and the Indiana Jones to my short round is Mr. David Mark Young, owner, master blender of Golden Sheaf Whiskey. David, how are you today?
Great, Dixon. How are you this morning?
I'm good, man.
Thanks for that amazing introduction, as always. Happy holidays.
That's all the show prep I do is just the intro. That's it. The rest of it,
and you do such a great job.
Yeah, the rest of it is just like let's wing it.
Yeah.
So the holidays are upon us.
They are.
And
they're here.
I was thinking about this and talking to you about this, thinking about talking to you about this. You know, in this little circle, this small town that I live in or whatever, like, you know, I'm the bourbon guy. Like you're the, you know, I'm the bourbon guy and
Get that.
Even in larger circles, sometimes, you know, I'm the bourbon guy. And it was funny, like a couple days ago, because I think everybody's going through the same thing. Like, oh, I've got a bourbon lover on my list. There's, you know, and I can't tell you the number of texts and calls and emails that I get. I mean, people are like, hey, you know, we really want to do something special for the boss, or we want to get something for dad, or we want to get something for some clients or coworkers. And it's always, Dixon, do you know where we could get 6 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle? Or, I got a buddy who's really into bourbon, and he'd really like a bottle of George T. Stagg for Christmas. Do you know where I could get one of those? And I mean, it's just kind of insane. Sometimes I want to, I just want to respond with, yeah, let me just magically create one of these things, these. And I think it's fun. I mean, we rolled out 2XO, the Phoenix blend, hoping that it would be there in time for people to, secure this for gifts. I mean, you're always thinking September, October, because people are going to be, in purchase mode, gift mode. But the whole situation is just, maddening anymore. And it's so challenging. I mean, you're a shopper, you're a
consumer.
Yeah, but you're a serial liquor store visitor and stuff like that. I mean,
admittedly,
I think we all know how it's changed, but it's just unbelievable the way this whole situation works these days.
Yeah, well, it seems like everything's in high demand, but I think I get the same thing, and it's interesting. It's funny. It's ironic. And every time I shake my head, literally yesterday, somebody sent me a text. It was an old neighbor of mine, and telling me about her husband's newfound affinity for bourbon, and have I ever heard of Pappy Van Winkle? And I knew it was coming next. Was right. If I could get a couple bottles, one for her son and one for her husband, and so instead I pointed her toward Golden Sheaf and some 2XO and said, these are more realistically obtainable and perhaps even better tasting. I don't know. So that's up to you. But
yeah, I mean, I just, it's funny when I think about the way this whole thing has changed. When in my previous life of, running the inn and the restaurants, and we opened the tavern in 2004. And and if I wanted a bottle of Pappy 23, I ordered it on Thursday and it came on the truck on Friday, and the delivery driver would say, "Oh my gosh, what is this? That's expensive." It was completely different. And then, as the popularity grew, it really went, and the relationship you cultivated was with the producer, because if Julian and Preston want the Van Winkle to be, in high end bourbon accounts, high end restaurants, they want it in front of people. They don't like the idea of it being flipped, and that type of thing.
Sure.
When you talk antique collection, Sazerac, they wanted the entire antique collection on the back bar of the Old Owl Tavern, because we had so many, we were pouring it at a decent, and so Four Roses limited edition small batch. I went to Four Roses and they said, yes, we want to be there. We want to get you barrel picks. We want the stuff on the shelves and all that stuff. And it was amazing as this thing grew, the way there was a power shift, and the power shift really went to the distributor, and the distributor, basically said, we buy it from producer. We're going to use it as a tool to move other products. And towards the end of my life in hospitality, there were local, Mexican restaurants that were getting more Van Winkle than the Old Owl Tavern was getting, because they were moving all of this Sazerac tequila and things like that. And it was just, it was amazing when you go have those conversations with them, like, what is going on here?
Right.
And I think you see that at the retail level as well. I mean, it's the big guys that get the stuff. The days of my local gets stuff and holds it for me. The locals, they don't have access to it anymore because they don't move as much as the big players, and it's it's made the whole thing crazy.
Right. So with this, it'd be interesting to, it's only been a handful of years, but between Kentucky Owl and 2XO, what's stands out as the biggest challenge or biggest difference now between rolling out those two products?
Well, I think with 2XO, when we rolled that out, although my partners in this prestige beverage company do have other brands, this initial rollout was exclusively about 2XO. And when we were doing Kentucky Owl, and I don't think this is particularly a Stoli issue, but it was, they used what people wanted as a method to also attach it to other products, so they could, so it was like, we can give you 2 bottles, but if you pick up a couple cases of Stoli cucumber and some Bayou rum, we could probably throw in another bottle. And it's that kind of leveraging these things is frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating. And you talk to, and that's not just Kentucky Owl, but when I was, when we were doing the tavern, it was like, well, your best way to get more Van Winkle is if you put in a Fireball machine and put Wheatley vodka in your well. And it was like, well, we're not really a Fireball account, and it's just it
contradicts. It takes you down a path you're probably not prepared for as a retailer or a on-premise account. I'm curious. So 2XO by Dixon Deadman, it's got your name right on the label. How much control does Dixon Deadman have of where 2XO goes?
Yeah, I mean, I have a say in anything I want to have a say in. There comes a point where you just can't, or, you know, I mean, with Kentucky Owl, it was more about picking my battles. With this one, it's much more about trusting the team and their decisions. And, you know, there are other, you know, there are relationships that I don't know about. For example, you know, what markets Prestige has a good relationship with a distributor in,
right.
or, you know, or whatever. So, you know, I definitely was able to be at the table when we talked about what states we wanted to distribute to, and could have as much say or as little say as I wanted to. And there were certain places that I had great relationships. You know, I mean, like Texas, we had done, you know, I had great relationships at Texas, Florida, you know, Illinois, obviously Kentucky and things like that. So you want to go where you're kind of known or whatever. And then, you know, I didn't get into the weeds in terms of when we looked at a particular state, like where, you know, some states you just have to go certain places. Like you have to feed, you know, my big, and one of the big conversations that we had, because everybody wants to sell cases, but we also have to build a brand, and we have to build, you know, and brands are built, in my opinion, in the on-premise. You know, you know, not everybody's going to get to be able to buy that bottle because they're not going to be there that day, but if they've heard about it and see it on a back bar and can say, I want to try that. So, you know, I was vocal about where and about, you know, a certain percentage for each state that was dedicated to the on-premise so that we could get it there. But, you know, there are just some things that, you know, there's just too, you know, you can't be involved in everything. I couldn't be involved in everything. And I've got 3 guys on my team, and they took care of a lot of that stuff. So
Yeah. That's good. I'm sure you get hit up. I mean, being the face and the name, I'm sure you get hit up a lot, especially being out on the road. You know, people requesting more than you can actually a lot.
Yeah. And then, you know, it's a lot of the comments on social media like, hey, my local didn't get any, can you, you know, and it's, you know, then it's, you know, it's like, okay, let me make a call to our national sales guy to see if we can get a 6-pack to a store in Raleigh, North Carolina or whatever.
Right.
And, you know, so you try, but
you try, do what you can
do. There's nothing worse nothing worse. You know, it's a great problem to have people want it, and you want to get it to them. But this whole model has really changed and made it really hard for people to get their hands on this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the major factors. I kind of went into this whole thing from a kind of a risk management aspect, and that was one of the biggest hangups. There's challenges all around, like we've discussed, supply chain and, you know, just sourcing barrels and that kind of stuff. But gosh, the horror stories you hear about distribution, and I know my first experience with a distributor, potential experience, you know, we went in with our first release, and the first thing they said, they didn't even try the juice yet. They heard, you know, the wave tops of the pitch, and they said double the price. And but based on what was, you know, so you clearly have you know, more in-depth insight and experience and knowledge, but why? And to them it was just, oh, that's where it belongs, the way you described it. And so, you know, I get that. And there were a number of other things, but then moving on, you know, with the distributor I am with now, Quench, and they do a pretty good job. They I mean, you know, we're small footprint, but we, I know we can't say pre-sale, but socialize the products, you know, increase the brand awareness and do what we can and get out there, and then leave it up to the retailers, the merchants to to reach out. And but even that, then they'll reach out to me. I'm the touch point for that, apparently, directly. So, if they can't find it, or if there's not enough or whatever. But yeah, it's challenging for sure. And and I know this one thing that surprised me about Kentucky Owl was one of the fears or the scares, or O&D. Everybody talked about O&D, October, November, December, selling. Nobody wants to release a brand the last 3 months of the year. I actually did the same thing. Released a couple of years ago, Christmas Eve, and it was on the tail end of O&D. But there's a lot of things in there, reasons why that I didn't really understand. But I mean, you're blowing it out of the water with your rollout, which is impressive. And so if any of those O&D
yeah, I mean there have been, and I won't talk specifics, and it was fine, but there are a couple states where we have multiple distributors based on the region, and
right.
There were a couple that said we don't launch any new products in O&D. O&D,
yeah.
like I didn't know what O&D when I first started, doing stuff in the whatever corporate business world, and you hear all these like acronyms, and it's like I gotta Google that real fast. But and so they said, we don't release anything in O&D, and it was like, well, that's totally fine. And we said, when we come back with this next round, if the other partner in the state knocks it out of the park, I hope we can find some cases to get to you, and of course that was met with, oh, okay, yeah, we'll see. And then 2 weeks later, that particular distributor that turned it down said, wait, actually we've changed our mind, which is kind of funny. And I get it. I mean, everybody's trying to move everything they've got in the warehouse by the end of the year. So you have to, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. But, there's, that was the thing forever. Forever, it was always September. September, Bourbon Heritage Month. That's when everybody was releasing, and it slowly crept into October and then November, and I think that's around. That's kind of the holiday concept, right? I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, demand-wise, year-round, I'm thinking there's certain times of year that bourbon is in higher demand than other times of year, and this being one of them. So
I certainly think that has merit when you talk about, like, yes, does bourbon consumption in the, let's say, $35 to $50 price point, like does that change in the summer? Absolutely. You're less likely to go home on a Tuesday, and if it's 90 degrees outside and you're going to cut the grass, you're probably going to drink a beer, and then maybe, whatever, like you drink whatever your
something
Malibu
cold.
Rum and pineapple with cranberry or whatever.
Something refreshing.
They call that the Tracy Osborne around here. But,
okay.
So I think, I don't think with, here's another acronym for you. I don't think with LTOs, I had to look up LTO, limited time offering. Like I don't, for those types of things, I think the demand is always there. I don't think it's nearly as seasonal as, I think if you're going to release something that's limited, one-off, has some scarcity to it, I don't think, in my opinion, you can sell it in February, March just as easily as you can sell it in October, November.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I'm just wondering, is that, have you tailored your go-to-market strategy around O&D or even Father's Day or some of the bigger
our
holidays?
strategy is really to to eventually get to the point where we have 3 limited edition releases per year. So in the spring, we'll do one of those icon series. So in the spring, we'll release the Innkeeper's Blend, which is the follow-up to the Phoenix Blend. Somewhere in August, September, probably August, we'll release our Gem of Kentucky series, which is our single barrel series. So there, I'm only going to do like 65 single barrels a year, and we'll launch that, and that'll be the top piece of our program. And then turn around in September, October, and do the 3rd installment of the Icon series. That what's called the Heritage Blend is going to be the 3rd one.
Nice.
And then somewhere around that time frame, depending on how the liquid works out, we'll introduce the Oak series, which is going to be our everyday, ongoing SKU, always available.
Gotcha.
And so the idea is, by the time we get to 24 and forward, we'll have kind of the baseline program that's out there all the time, and then 3 LTOs sprinkled in throughout the year. And I don't think there's anything, nothing, based on my experience and when we've released other stuff with Kentucky Owl. I mean, if it's, I don't think you have to target a certain time of year for something that's special.
Yeah.
I think all brands would tell you that their kind of everyday offering, or their, obviously their sales slow down in certain months and pick up in other months. But,
sure. Yeah.
I just think with the way there's demand for these types of higher end allocated items, I don't think it's that, I don't think the calendar dictates when people are going to buy or not buy.
Right. Yeah, I think there's some, certain times a year. I mean, I get, have had requests every Father's Day. I'm the bourbon guy over here, so every Father's Day, somebody, hitting me up for what's the best Father's Day bourbon, or even holiday bourbon, or
what is the best Father's Day bourbon, David?
Ooh, ask me during Father's Day.
Okay. What's the best holiday bourbon then?
By far the best holiday bourbon is the Golden Sheaf port finished 115 proof bourbon that'll be coming out.
Could not agree more. Yeah.
Any minute now. Or is possibly out in some places.
I mean, that is such a bizarre question, like. And when you're the bourbon guy, like, what are the ones you get? Like, hey, Father's Day's coming up. I want to get Dad something special in that $50 to $60 range. Like, you know what I mean? It's just always really.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. What was that movie? Guy walks in the store and says, "Hey, I want to get some really nice champagne. It's my fiance's family's holiday, what do you recommend?" And the guy says, "Well, you get some Mums. It's on sale for $5.99. And he's like, "Well, you got anything more expensive?" And he's like, "Well, you can buy a bunch of Mums." So yeah, $50 range, just get 2 or 3 bottles of Jim Beam and Dad'll be fine.
Do you, if somebody, and Golden Sheaf and 2XO aside, if somebody was going to buy you, like a Christmas bourbon, and this is not, you have to open it and drink it. Is there one that, you would like? There's plenty that you would be excited about, but is there one that you would say, "Oh man, this person really likes me"?
My mother does an amazing job of buying me an especially nice bottle of bourbon. I don't know how she pulls it off, but it always shows up in the mail every year. One year she bought me a bottle of, what was it, Jefferson's Presidential, their Bordeaux finish.
Okay.
A bottle of Old Fitzgerald 14-year. For me, particularly right now, Parker's Heritage is kind of at the top of the list. maybe one of those 21-year Heaven Hill or 17-year Heaven Hill releases that just came out. I see those show up on premise, in bars and stuff, and rarely ever for retail around here. Or if they are, they don't show up on a shelf. Yeah. And I try to, I'll taste it, I'll get a little taste, but that's what kind of locks me in. I need that. I've got to have that, and add it to the collection as a sipper. It's something I want to drink. I've never had a bottle of George T. Stagg. I've always, I love Stagg Jr. I've tasted year over year George T. Stagg and all the antique collection, but that's the one I gravitate toward, that flavor profile. So yeah, I'd say George T. Stagg, whatever year, it's kind of would love to have a bottle of that, or 2 bottles, one to keep, one to drink.
I think I have every George T. Stagg from 2008 to about 2019. When we got them, I always pull one aside. That was always, the 3 things that I always look forward to back, it was, and I think the 15-year-old Van Winkle is just one of, I just absolutely adore that stuff. I really could take or leave the 20 and 23, but the 15 I think is just that fabulous sweet spot. George T. Stagg, and then the Four Roses limited edition small batch. Yep. Those were the 3. Those are my 3 that I always, and obviously we get out of this business, I don't see them anymore. I don't have access to them anymore. But that would be, I've tasted the George T. Stagg this year. It's phenomenal. Obviously the Pappy 15. Have not tasted a Four Roses limited edition small batch in probably a couple of years. I have a plethora of them up to a certain point, but that would be the one. If one showed up, I would say somebody knows me and somebody really likes me, and I'm not really sure that person is out there. Like not my mom, not my dad, not my wife. Like I would probably have to give that to myself. I may be the only person that likes myself enough to get myself that, but that would be it for me.
Gosh, if I found a bottle, I'd certainly send you a sample of it. Right. I hear you.
That's fair. That's very fair. No, I mean, I think I go back to looking at this stuff. I was in New York in November, around the 1st of November, because that was the marathon. And Manhattan liquor stores are like allocated bourbon museums. I mean, everything is there. They have everything.
It's like Vegas,
yeah, except the prices are just astronomical.
Yeah.
You want Pappy Van Winkle? Go to Midtown Manhattan and drop $5,000 on a bottle of the 15-year-old.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's a museum.
It's unbelievable. And you go. One store had a bottle of Batch 7 Kentucky Owl, which we released in 2017. And I think it was $2,700.
Wow. Did you buy it?
Just no. But you know what I did buy? What I found? I was in one store and they had insane prices on insane. And they had just received that old Fitzgerald 14-year-old that everybody, and I asked the guy, I was like, what are you going to price that at? And he looked at the price he paid for it and he was like, I don't know, $650. And I was like, sounds about right. Yeah. And then I was looking in the cabinet and there was a 2019 Four Roses limited edition small batch, 2019 with the sticker on it for $375.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow.
And I was like, pull that out. And he was like,
yeah.
You're going to buy it? And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm going to buy it. He was like, I should have this priced higher, right? And I was like, well, based on the rest of the prices in your store, yes.
Yeah.
And so I definitely bought that and brought it home with me. But
Yeah, no kidding. Since we're on telling pricing stories here, I'll just share. I was in a big liquor store. I won't mention the name, but browsing the aisles like I do, looking at all these bourbon labels and a lot of local stuff. This is down in Atlanta. I'll tell you where it was. But there was a bottle of Old Pepper 10-year barrel strength, I think. I have a couple bottles left, but anyway, it was priced at like $27. And this, I think at the time, they had just released this. It was prior to that, it was in, you could only buy it at the distillery type of thing, and they were selling it for $150 a bottle, I think. But anyway, the guy had it for $27, and he comes over and asks if I needed help, and I said no, but I wanted to let you know that this is probably priced incorrectly. And he's like, oh, is it too much? And I said, no, it's really underpriced. And he says, what do you want me to do about it? I said, well, I guess nothing. He's like, well, are you gonna buy it? And I said, well, I'll take all 10. So
I bought an antique collection. I mean, we could tell these stories all day. I bought an antique collection in a store that had all of the Van Winkles starting at $750 and going up. And there was an antique collection, and I said, how much are those? And they said $69.99. And I said, bring it all down. And the lady was like, well, I guess I need to check with the manager. And I was like, no, you don't. You got them. That's the way they're priced. Absolutely not. Bring them all. But then, it's funny because I look for that stuff and try to, and then there's like a local liquor store near my house, and great guy, friend of mine. When Elizabeth says, hey, can you grab a bottle of wine on the way home? Like I pop in there and grab it, get my, whatever. But there were times when we would put out, a batch of Kentucky Owl, and, when I would pull into the parking lot, I could see them scrambling to take the bottles and put them under the counter so that I didn't see what they were charging for these bottles, and then somebody would be like, hey, the guy at the street, do you see the price they have on your stuff? And I was like, I know, but I don't want to know what it was, and it's like, $600 or something like that. And that's why they were pulling it down and putting it under the counter or whatever. Right. And, it's funny. I mean, you probably get them too. I get the messages like, hey, I thought your bottle was supposed to be this Phoenix blend. I thought it was supposed to be $99.99, and our local's charging, $199.99. And,
right.
And, it's a fine line because you do want to go back and say, hey, maybe don't send so much to this account because they're, gouging a little bit. Then it's a compliment kind of in a weird way that they want to do that with your product or whatever. And then you have to think like the guy's a businessman and he's bought it. Right. And if he thinks he can get it, and then you also have to remember that you can't step in on behalf of everybody that sends you a message on Facebook or right. Instagram. It's impossible.
Yeah. Same thing. I've seen what's the highest you've seen on the primary market for one of the Kentucky Owl batches?
Oh, primary market for Kentucky Owl?
Yeah.
It just like in a retailer?
Yeah.
$650, $700.
Yeah.
Well, that's outside of the, I think there was the last one I made was batch 10. And I think there was a batch 10 in some of those Manhattan stores that had $1,000 price tag on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I've seen it in New York. I've seen it for 1,000 and above. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's got to inflate your ego slightly.
I mean, yes and no. My ego is a little bit more inflated when you hear it's all gone.
Yeah. That is
I'd
nice
much
to hear.
it sell than it sell for silly prices. Yeah. I mean, even the secondary market stuff. I mean, yes, does it inflate your ego to find out that your bottle's moving for, of course it does. But
yeah.
You want to create something that people are going to give as a gift, are going to share with
Yeah.
Whatever. Like you want to, and you put all your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something that just becomes a commodity for people to use to get something else, and so no one's really trying it, no one's opening it up, no one's sharing it, and that's sometimes, I mean, it's great, but it's also, that's
right,
kind of not what you go into creating something with that mindset, I guess.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I've seen since you rolled out, since you were here for the Omaha Whiskey Festival. Gosh, I don't remember. Was that September? I don't know. September, October.
It all runs.
But ever
together.
since you started rolling out, man, you're everywhere. You're the talk of the town, talk of the country, talk of the world. It's. I'm not trying to blow smoke. It's everywhere. Seeing all the reviews. Not at all. No, it's. I'm hoping that you're seeing any kind of metrics or anything on your end.
No, I am. I mean, we get this stuff all the time, and it's phenomenal. I mean, I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away. I'm so appreciative. I'm so thankful. I mean, it and this time of year and with all that's going on, and being able to kind of slow down and pause and really reflect on, what we've accomplished, what you've accomplished, what we're doing together here. I mean, I feel like, I'm very, very blessed, very thankful for that. And what I love about what we're doing is that people, we've got this priced so people aren't afraid to open it, and they're opening it, and they're sharing it, and they're enjoying it, and they're, it's like I'm going back to get another bottle, not because it's because I finished the first one and I want another one, and and I mean, I know you're seeing the same thing with your stuff. I mean, it's so great to have something again that people are really enjoying and really, really into, and I thank my lucky stars every day, and it makes me excited to get started on the next one.
Well, good. Yeah. And congratulations. I mean, it's awesome. And I'll take this full circle, ask a question, because I've found myself throughout this journey having to pivot or even, taking a step forward, doing a release or going in a certain direction. I'd love to take this as a, future topic on another episode, kind of go into these things. But there's been a number of times where I've done something and then step back and kind of gone, what just happened? Was that the right thing to do? And then you just kind of have to wait it out. So, going into O&D, did you ever have a moment where it was like, oh, wait, what are we doing here? Or was it just not a factor? I mean, was it factored in and just,
No, I think that when I first started Kentucky Owl, when it was Mark and I, we were kind of freewheeling. We were kind of, let's try this. Let's see, whatever. And then, what I think the one of the, if not the greatest things that I have, in my life now, in this 2XO life, are the three guys that I started this brand with, who have great experience building brands, starting brands, developing brands. And I think, I know my role. I know my job. My job is to put these blends together and go out and represent them. I am so thankful and blessed with a great team who can, when it's, when I have an idea and they say, well, let's think about it this way, or let's and I think, that's having a team around you that can, be honest with you about, let's think about why this might not be a good idea, why this might work. Let's, and I'm like you, like we're idea guys, and we like the whiskey part of it and all that stuff. And it's having that sounding board where they think about things more on the on the business side of things, and they understand what challenges we might have with distributors or with and I think that's a great topic. I mean, to talk through some of that stuff and because it's, but I'm these guys, in terms of things like that, they forget in a day more than I've learned in 15 years of doing this. So I think, in anything, it's surrounding yourself with people who can, challenge you and challenge your ideas and help you, kind of process things. And that's another thing that I'm very thankful for is my team in terms of that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I can tell you have a great team, on all fronts, including the marketing side. They're doing a great job. Seeing all of the posts and a lot of reviews and all the great things. Yeah, no, that's great. Let's do that on future episode. I can think of 15 things off the top of my head that were kind of oh shit moments, and fortunately they panned out well. So looking back to that, reflecting back to that team spirit, and everybody pitching in, and you learn a lot from your oh shit moments. Absolutely.
I think obviously you learn as much from or if not more, from your failures or missteps than you do from the things that just hit. So I don't know. I'm thankful for all of it, and that's what I'm doing. Pausing this whole thing, and I'm truly thankful for this opportunity, for this, to be able to do this with you, and for anybody, all, as we say, all 7 people that listen. I'm thankful for them too. I hope everybody, has a wonderful holiday and good stuff to come in the new year.
Agreed. I'm extremely thankful for a lot of things myself, including you, Dixon Deadman, and this podcast and your time, and it's really been great. Good way to celebrate the holiday and wish our viewers happy holiday. And
there are people behind the scenes too that Mearden, Matt, the team that helped, Mearden, that helps pull all this together. I hope everybody that touches this thing and touches 2XO and Golden Sheaf, realizes how thankful we are, and so happy holidays to all. We'll be back at it again very soon.
Well said. Happy holidays. Cheers. Don't forget to like, brother. Share, follow, comment. Happy holidays, everybody. Cheers.